what I do is I have a Google Sheet that connects to ChatGPT through the API, and I can put in one sheet all the information I have about this client, everything I've learned, everything about their audience, and then put a very simple prompt together like this that says, I need a short ad copy variation based off of this motivation, and then I link to where that is. And you can run this as many times as you want, or you could say, give me 3 variations, and it's gonna reference all the stuff I've already learned. And now every time I go to create ad copy, it's slight changes here and there, but it gives me all the bone.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to AI in Motion, the only podcast that talks about what real businesses are doing with AI and how they're implementing it into their business without all the fluff, without all the hype and all the other garbage that tends to be associated with these kinds of conversations. And my guest today is fabulous, AJ Wilcox. He is the CEO, the founder, the head honcho, if you want to call him that, of B2 Linked. It is an advertising agency specific to LinkedIn. He's got a decade of experience in LinkedIn advertising and running campaigns. He's had hundreds of ad accounts that he's worked for, including, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, AJ, 5 of the top 10 largest ad accounts on LinkedIn you guys have managed at one point?
Yeah, totally. Love giant accounts.
Dude, don't we all? But that's, well, clear. So what I'm basically saying is clearly you know what you're doing, and I'm so excited to have you here and to start picking your brain about some of this stuff. I think I want to start out like this. I've heard you talk about this, so I don't think it's that far off. I have tried over the course of the last decade or so pretty much every platform for paid advertising. And LinkedIn for me has been the clunkiest, the most complicated, the most frustrating, and the most costly in terms of acquisition cost of any other platform that I have been on. So much so that I actually tell my clients, hey, if you have an ad budget and you're looking for places to deploy it, LinkedIn probably be the last one I would recommend for you, even if your ideal client you know is going to be on LinkedIn just for those reasons. So, I mean, what pushed you into focusing on LinkedIn as the platform, and maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the difficulties and frustrations you've had with it, but why you still see it as a real major advertising place for people who are trying to gain leads and sales?
Yeah, I love it, because I've heard this feedback and even experienced it myself, that LinkedIn ads are too expensive and they don't work. And what I've found is what makes LinkedIn ads so special is this ability to really target the people who make your ideal customers. But boy, does LinkedIn charge us an arm and a leg. We pay a premium for that ability to target. And what's more is it's very much a channel where you go to LinkedIn to explore, to learn, to connect, and you're not going to buy new software. And so it becomes a thing where people go, ooh, if I show an ad to a cold audience and say, hop on the phone with my sales rep and buy now, and they don't accept, it must not work. The channel doesn't work. But over and over, what we've seen is when we approach it right, which is we respect the fact that it's a get to know you kind of channel. It's brand awareness, it's engagement, but we also nurture them until they're ready to convert. We actually do see when we put the time in and the investment, we will see that it becomes a conversion channel, and it's not. It doesn't have to be too expensive. We have a client right now who they run a really heavy Meta presence and LinkedIn, and when we very first started, we went, oh no, LinkedIn ads are producing conversions that are 3 times more than Facebook. Like, we're gonna get cut. But then we talked to their sales team, and we find out that the sales team has to just disqualify 90% of all of the Meta leads that come in, but they don't have to disqualify any of the LinkedIn ones. And so when you track it through all the way to the sale, LinkedIn has twice the ROI that Meta does.
Yeah, so your CPL is probably substantially higher, but the cost for conversion to sale is lower, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and that tends to be true in the frustrating thing about B2B versus B2C is that a lot of times, depending on your industry, the lead time from first touch to a sale might be 6 months, 8 months. So how do you guys think about that when you're preparing sort of a campaign for someone, when you know that that lead cycle is there? Because, we don't have to just, as business owners, especially as, small to mid-sized business owners, we've all not just got to calculate what the cost is to acquire a client. Like I sell, packages at $10,000, $20,000, right? So if I can acquire a lead for $1,000 or sale for $1,000, that's great. But if I got to carry that cost for 6 months, 9 months, a year before I get that conversion, now all of a sudden that's a big consideration. So when you're planning that out for a client, are you prepping them mentally for that, or is there something else you can do to help facilitate that conversion process to happen faster?
Yeah, I think you can start by, when we bring on a new client, we can say, okay, who are your warm audiences? Have you been collecting a retargeting list from your website? We can create one from anyone who's visited your LinkedIn company page. Do you have lists of people who are already current customers, past customers, leads that haven't yet closed? We could start by advertising to all of those warm audiences that will have a much shorter sales cycle. And I think that gives us a nice leg up to begin with.
Yeah.
But I will also stop every client from the beginning and say, this is a process that is going to take time. We have to let people know who've never heard of you before that you exist, and keep dropping education for them and nurturing them along the way. This process can take 3 to 6 months to really see the wheels start to turn. And so, don't bring us on if you're not ready and invested to go the whole way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, how does that actually manifest itself in the content? Because I'm assuming you guys handle the the content creation, you handle the production, you handle the distribution on LinkedIn, or is it not that way?
Yeah, we can help for sure. What I have found over the last 10 years of being in business is that the client always knows their customer better, and they know their product better. So when I get things that come from them, I can critique it and say, let's say this instead, or do more like this, less like that. And it's usually a lot more successful than if we create something from scratch and then they go, that's not our brand, and we have to go back and forth.
Yeah, so okay, I get it. So your value that you really bring to the table is in the targeting, the segmenting, and tweaking the copy and the product they're giving you, the content they're giving you, to make it as optimal as possible for the platform.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I don't want to speak badly about LinkedIn because we're partners, but realistically, if you just go to LinkedIn ads and you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to get robbed blind. All of the accounts that I do audits on, they're paying between $20 to $40 per click. And it's just because they just take whatever LinkedIn's advice is, and it's expensive advice. Our clients are paying between $7 to $9 per website click. And so that's one of the big benefits, is we know how to save money and get higher performance on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And now I don't feel so bad about telling my clients not to just go start spending money on LinkedIn ads, because that's what I was seeing. I was seeing click costs being just through the roof. And I thought, man, I can't sustain this at my end. And I wasn't a big enough shop to go hire a firm like yours to help me out. But let's talk about how that actually works. So you've talked about inviting marketing versus intrusive marketing. When I look across social media, all the marketing I see is intrusive.
Yep.
So when you talk about creating inviting marketing, stuff that starts a conversation, can you kind of give me an idea of what that looks like and how that works?
Yeah, and LinkedIn just released a new ad format about 2 years ago that totally revolutionized this whole idea for me. They launched what are called thought leader ads. Now, every other ad format that LinkedIn has had, it's the company shows up in front of your face the first time you see it. And what do we do when we see companies that we've never heard of? We keep scrolling. But what thought leader ads are is we can now promote an individual's post. So this could be an internal thought leader, your CEO and founder, your head of sales, whoever it is. They can post video and or single image or just text only, and we can promote that through ads. And what we're finding is you share the same message that you would have shared from your company, but now it's coming from an individual, and it gets 3 times the attention. Not only that, it's a third the cost because the attention is 3 times higher. And it's blowing it out of the water. This is by far the best way that we can grab initial attention, is by having them interface with a person. what we've found is that person, if they're just saying, hey, I have a product that does this, it's not going to perform well. But if they say something like, here's a quick tip, a trick, a strategy, an industry update that you should know about, and it's coming from someone authoritative, people listen, and they build that know, like, and trust factor so much faster with a human, and it's blowing it away.
Correct me if you don't agree. I'm of the opinion, and when I teach brand building to companies, because I teach a lot of individuals, coaches, consultants, those types of people, how to build like personal brand, if you want to call it that, or authority brands. And we do exactly what you talk about. We get out there in front, we're friendly and helpful all the time. And then we say, hey, if you like this, you can also go and check out what I do. And when somebody comes to me, and they are a corporate brand, or if they're an individual who has scaled to the point now where they want to take themselves out of being the role, kind of the figurehead of the company, one of the things I always recommend to them is that they maintain some sort of figurehead presence. Because even if we're going to apply we have to apply the same sort of human characteristics to a corporate brand that we would to an individual brand. And in order to do that, the easiest way is just to have your flow, like from Progressive commercials. Whoever your flow is, that person needs to be able to stand in for what your company represents. And so is that kind of the way you approach it too? Is that you find somebody inside the company who can be that?
Very much so. And it's so easy to have this be the founder, the owner, because they're not going anywhere. And there's a concern that what if we turn one of our employees into our thought leader and then they move on and we lose our thought leader? We can't make continuation content anymore from that. It's certainly a concern for sure. But something else that we found is the person who is your figurehead on these thought leader ads, they don't have to be that person forever. They can be a temporary voice. And so you can grab anyone in the organization, have them be the face of one of these ads, sharing a tip, a trick, a strategy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to follow up with anyone who engages with that ad. We're going to then target them with content from the company. And then we've effectively transferred the know, like, and trust that you have with this human to the brand. And now they continue the relationship with the brand.
That's brilliant. And we are going to get to some AI stuff here, I promise. But this is so important because I don't care what stage of business you're at, whether you're just starting out or you run a $100 million company, at your core, it's marketing and sales that drives future growth in the company. And so understanding kind of how AJ approaches LinkedIn marketing and marketing in general is just so critical before we even start talking about now, how do we apply AI to make this faster, cheaper, more effective, and more efficient, right? So you spoke about something earlier, and you talked about retargeting twice now. How important is retargeting in the process? Can you actually do LinkedIn marketing without a retargeting strategy?
Such a good question. And we have. For years and years, we tried. Retargeting across all the different networks, it's inherently very weak. It's based off of a cookie being present in someone's browser, and we know that the internet has waged war against cookies and they're winning. So any sort of retargeting that's done on the website, it's a leaky bucket. And it's like trying to fill up this leaky bucket and take it somewhere. It's just not going to last. But LinkedIn released this ability to do retargeting based off of what someone does while they're on LinkedIn. No cookie required. Like if I create an audience that is anyone who's watched at least 50% of one of my video ads, LinkedIn looks at it and goes, oh, everyone who watched your video ad, they were logged into LinkedIn. I remember who they were. I knew which ones your ads were, and I can tell you and keep track of who those audiences are. And yeah.
Why doesn't any other platform do that? That just seems, or do they? And we just, LinkedIn's just better at it.
I think LinkedIn's just better. Meta does have some of these audiences, but when I went to go check it out, I went, whoa, LinkedIn has like 4 times more options for retargeting on platform interactions. And so I think this is one case where LinkedIn is ahead of Meta and Google.
Nice. So now let's take that concept and we kind of understand now the importance of doing sort of like figurehead marketing. This requires, I am assuming, requires a massive amount of content creation. And that's, I think, where a lot of companies get bogged down is we have to produce hundreds of pieces of content. If you listen to the old Gary Vee approach, it's like you need to have 80 pieces of content every single day on 80 different platforms, right?
Yep.
Are you using any tools? Are your clients using any tools or processes through AI and automation in order to make that process faster?
You know, LinkedIn is kind of a double-edged sword in this way, where the great part about it is people don't tend to spend nearly as much time on LinkedIn as they do on other networks. So when you have one piece of content that's performing well, it can perform well for like a month without touching it. Whereas you run the same kind of thing on Meta or TikTok or anything else, your audience is going to get tired of seeing the same ad over the course of a week, and you have to feed it something new. So LinkedIn, it's a machine that you don't have to feed nearly as often. The other side of that sword is like, ooh, we wish they would spend more time on LinkedIn so that they would see our ads more often, but that's okay. You really don't have to have a ton. You might have to have maybe 2 or 3 really good pieces of content, and like these thought leader ads, you could create them with something as simple as just 30 seconds in front of your phone camera.
What classifies really good? And how do we, once we know, kind of have an idea of this performed well, how are you using automation or some sort of process to augment that to say, okay, help me create 15 more that are similar to this that I can test? First of all, is that the process? And secondly, how are you guys using automation and AI to do that?
Yeah, very much that's the process. We start out with whatever sorts of, I call them offers, whatever the offers are that the client has. And so they may say, ooh, we have an ebook, we have a quarterly report that we release, and we have a webinar. So we'll run ads against any of these offers that they have. And what we're going to see is we're going to see certain offers that no matter what we say or what the imagery is or the video is, they tend to get higher engagement rates or click-through rates. And then if they are something that's gated where someone is going to convert, we can watch those conversion rates. And so if we find that, hey, their webinar is the thing that's working, that's the really good piece of content that we can probably run for a month and a half before it gets tired.
Yeah. And you showed me something earlier before we started on the podcast where you guys actually created a spreadsheet and you connected it through API to ChatGPT to sort of help you guys understand better, because obviously you guys can't understand the intimacies of every single business that you operate with. But I thought that was really cool. Can you kind of show that to everybody and explain what that is? And because it's something that any company could do and that you could literally give to an employee and have them start working through that as well.
Absolutely. I'd love to show it. I'm super excited about this one. All right, so I have to give a shout out to my friend Tom Brzezinski. He was the one who turned me on to this concept that this even existed. I had a very simple spreadsheet that was like, when I'm creating messaging or ad content for a client, this is who the audience is. This is the kind of offer that we have. This is where the traffic's headed. Here, ChatGPT, like, concatenate these things together, and I would go and paste them into a ChatGPT window. Mm-hmm. And my friend Tom said, oh no, I've got this one. What I do is I have a Google Sheet that connects to ChatGPT through the API, and I put anything I want into that sheet. This could be like, we went and found like the 50 highest performing hooks in written content. So we're saying, hey, here's a list of all of those hooks that you can reference.
And you found that in you just using ChatGPT to help you figure that out, or did you locate it some other way?
Yeah, I think this one was actually generated by ChatGPT, but you could also Google it and say, the top prompts and just paste it in. We also took one of their highest performing ads from the past and said, here's some example ad copy. We could also take brand accolades and awards. Like if we see on their website, they've won awards in certain areas, we can put them in. And then what you can see up here on screen is this plugin called GPT for Sheets and Docs. Mm-hmm. I plug my ChatGPT API key in, and it costs very little to run. And I can put in one sheet all the information I have about this client, everything I've learned, everything about their audience, and then put a very simple prompt together like this that says, ChatGPT list. I need a short ad copy variation based off of this motivation, and then I link to where that is. And then down below, I've got another one that's like, now create a long variation of these. And you can run this as many times as you want, or you could say, give me 3 variations. And it's going to reference all the stuff I've already learned. And now every time I go to create ad copy, it's slight changes here and there, run the formula, and then I usually do have to massage it a little bit with a little bit of editing, but it gives me all the bones.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on one point that you said. You said that we talk about APIs and you talk about costs and, oh, it's very cheap. Very cheap is different for different people. So I just want to explain to everybody that the API is just something you go sign up for, and you can put $10 on the account. It's like platform.openai is what it is, and it'll take you there, and you just sign up for a free account. And when he talks about cheap, he's talking about fractions of a penny. Like, he's not talking, I mean, I have been playing around building AI agents for the past 3 weeks and just running simulation after simulation all the way through. And I think of the $10, I've used 49 cents of it. It's like, it's incredibly cheap for you to be able to do this. And so everybody kind of understands that marketing is really about finding something that works and then sort of tweaking it to see if we can get an improvement. So we change a phrase in the headline, or we change an image, or we change an angle, and we see what happens with that until we reach, whatever is the best version that we've got. And in the copywriting world, which I've been writing copy for about 15 years now, you have what's called a control piece. And the control piece is just, this is the best we've ever been able to do, right? And people will try and go in and beat the control piece. And that's what the big copywriters will do. Well, now with a simple connection into ChatGPT and a little spreadsheet like this that literally anyone can use, you can run those iterations, hundreds, if not thousands of those, and operate at a speed that no one even thought was possible 2 years ago. It's super exciting stuff.
Amen. Could not have said it better myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else are you using inside of your business to kind of optimize, automate the stuff that you're doing?
One that I'm really, really excited about, and maybe I shouldn't be as excited about it, but I was just perusing YouTube with my kids, and I saw a video come up that said you can automatically have whatever's in your voice notes on your phone transcribed by AI. And I went, ooh, that's interesting. I set aside a couple hours on a Saturday to set this up. And what happens is, again, it's through the OpenAI API. Very, very cheap. It is 40 cents per hour to transcribe. So literally, I'll hop in an in-person meeting, or when I'm attending a conference, I'll just open up the voice recorder app on my phone, hit record, go, and then I don't have to worry. Like, if it goes 2 hours, I'm out 80 cents. Yeah. And so many cool things have happened with this, but it takes the voice note. This is actually an agent. It goes through a product called Pipe Dream. Sorry. Okay. Goes through Pipe Dream, has it transcribed by Whisper, the OpenAI API for transcription, has it outputted directly into a Notion notepad file for me. And so I can just go through and see every talk I've attended, and it'll give you a synopsis and action items and things like that. It's amazing. And then taking it one step further, I served a religious mission for 2 years in Ukraine. This has been 20 years ago. I went to a reunion with other missionaries. The entire thing was in Russian. And I recorded, and I had no idea what it was going to do. Was it going to transcribe with English letters and do transliteration? Was it just going to say unintelligible text? I got out of that meeting, looked down in Notion, because it processes in like less than a minute, and it was there was not a single word of Russian. Not only did it take it all and like transcribe it, but it also translated it into English. It was amazing.
That's brilliant. So basically, you just talk into your phone when you want to make a note, and it automatically sends that over to a Notion account where you've got like a database in there of ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even last weekend, I was driving around and I had an idea for a blog post I wanted to write. So I just open up my voice note and say, hey, here's the idea for the blog post. I want to talk about this and this and this. And then by the time I get to where I'm going, it's in Notion, and I can just flesh it out from there.
Yeah, before we sign off today, can I get the link to that video? Because I recognize the YouTuber who's got that. It'd be great if I could just get that to share with the audience. That'd be awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I followed this guide and YouTube video really closely, and I'm a huge fan. So I'll send that to you right now.
Awesome, perfect. And this is such a funny thing because creative people, which I think most of us are at some level, but especially people who are in marketing or advertising, the idea is you don't know when they're going to come, and trying to find out when, or trying to figure out a way to compile all those loose notes in a simple format is really difficult. Like I use Notion a lot for just managing databases and just keeping my thoughts together. But that's a hard platform to just open up and start typing into. So I use basically Apple Notes to gather all my notes, and then I put them into Notion where I've got my database of ideas, right? Yep. This is just you save the step, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a way of just linking Notion to your Apple Notes or something, but adding the voice transcription, it just was the piece de resistance.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. I think, do you have anything else you want to share?
Oh, I totally can. Yeah. One of the other ways, I'll bring this up before I start talking. One of the other ways that I absolutely use AI all the time, I'm pretty decent at Excel, but definitely like when I start getting into like nested if statements to try to categorize something by if a campaign name contains a certain string or character, I get so lost, and it would take me like 45 minutes to make it happen. Right here up on screen, I had an actual example of ad results that I had running over a certain amount of time. And I wanted to, I'm only showing a limited number of rows, but this had like 30,000 rows, would have been really difficult to do manually. What I wanted to do is say, if something happened before April 17th, just don't say anything. But if it happened between I guess it was between the 10th and the 18th, say it was the 10th. If it happened after the 18th, categorize it as the 18th. And I just went to ChatGPT and said, in cell A2, I have dates. Can you give me the formula that would say, if it's before this date, do nothing. If it's between these, say April 10th. If it's after that, say April 18th. So really simple, just in words. And sure enough, as you can see here on screen, within 10 seconds, it gave me this formula. This would have taken me so long to create by myself, but I could just immediately get back to what I was doing and analyzing, which is, I think, where my brain is best used, and a lot less in the waste of having to send this to an employee and say, hey, can you figure this out?
Yeah, and I remember back in the day, we talked about this a little before the show, when I would have to do spreadsheet stuff. Like I said, I don't know anything about that. I can't write a stitch of code, and I found a guy that I could send it to. But to do something like that, I would have to explain it to him, and he'd have to ask me questions on what do I really mean, and then we do a back and forth, and a week later I'd get whatever it was I needed, or 2 days later.
Yeah,
and the coding capabilities, and I think maybe the big takeaway from this, for everybody listening, is just there are 100 or thousands of these little use cases that if you just learn a little bit about it, which I think is one of the benefits of listening to this show, will save you 2 hours here, 10 hours there, and that adds up. And what that means for you as you start to grow is it means you don't have to have an employee on staff who handles that sort of thing for you, or who's going and gathering all of this data, that literally you have an assistant along your side. And one of the things that I talked about in the last episode was the big aha moment for me was when I realized that I needed to be treating AI as an assistant and not as a tool. Because I think even a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, people in their mind might still be in this framework of, oh, I'm thinking about this is a tool that I can use, and how do I use this tool? No. It's so much more than that. It can do so many more things if you will allow it to.
Oh, could not have said it better myself. That's amazing.
Okay, so I want to touch on, kind of bring this together, because you've talked a lot about limitations, like you talked about when AI would produce the content for you, that it needed a lot of tweaking. Mm-hmm. And one of the misconceptions that's being peddled by a lot of people is, oh, well, just let AI take over your business. Build a build $1 million SMMA social media marketing agency with no employees with AI. And that to me is just abusive. It's not true. So where do you kind of draw the line? What still requires a lot of human interaction, and what do you feel comfortable turning over to artificial intelligence or to some aspect of that in order to help in the creative process? Brilliant
question. I think anytime that someone is going to see what I produce, I think there has to be a human touch there. There's this effect that we're seeing, and I think we're going to see more of it, where people are saying, ooh, I can tell that text is AI generated because it uses M dashes a lot between sentences. Or I can tell that image is AI generated because it's that same style. And we're going to get to a point where people go, ooh, if AI is creating it, maybe it doesn't have a lot of value for me. Maybe it's not cutting edge. There's not a thought leader driving it. So maybe I don't need to pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. I know as someone who I love to live on that bleeding edge of what's happening with one ad platform, I need whatever it is I'm producing to show that it's not AI. So I go out of my way to talk about past experiences, things that I know AI is not going to bring in. I want people to know that this is AI did not have a part of that. But what happens behind the scenes is I'm asking ChatGPT or Perplexity, give me ideas, brainstorm, help me come up with this concept that I can write about or teach about, or proofread this, give it to me in a way that makes me sound better. All of those things, like totally fair play with AI.
Yeah. So talk to me about some of the things. I'm assuming that there's a few things you probably tried to automate using artificial intelligence that went horribly awry. Yeah. Is there something that you would definitely tell people, hey, just don't do this, don't do it that way, because it's a painful.
Yeah, the most painful experience I've ever had with AI was I had this concept that's like, if I have data inside of LinkedIn ads, if I can export that to a CSV and say, hey, can you just analyze this for me? Point out what campaigns are working well, what ads are working well, what aren't. And I thought if I could just build a library of prompts, I could eventually get those kinds of things right into like a Google Sheet flow where reporting becomes automated. And I spent about 4 hours just fighting with ChatGPT, getting it to try to understand what was in the CSV, redefining and telling it like, ooh, define a click as this and define an engagement as this. All the custom formulas that I do, eventually I just gave up. And the realization I had is that LLMs, large language models, they are not large number models. They're not large math models. They are predominantly around language. So when I shifted that focus from, okay, how about I do the analysis, or I have analysis done numerically, mathematically, then I can feed it to AI and say, can you give me a summary here? Mm-hmm. That's where it helps. In the future, I hope it's a lot better at math, but boy, I feel like I really failed trying to make it my reporting suite.
Well, I've spent probably 10 to 20 hours trying to do something similar built with an AI agent and came up largely with the same result. It's, part of it's probably part of my abilities, right? But I think that that's something that we're still not quite there yet in terms of its abilities. But that kind of leads into my next question, which is, let's look out in the marketing sphere in say 3 years, because I don't know, it's moving so fast now. How is the marketing landscape going to change? Because we've talked a little bit about how thought leaders, AI is going to continue to just flood feeds with largely garbage content from people who are just trying to produce a massive amount of content without the type of human interaction that you and I have discussed. And what does LinkedIn look like specifically in 3 years with all of this continuing to evolve, and where do you want to see it go?
For LinkedIn specifically, I want to see what public perception does. my prediction is we're going to get to a point, like I said before, where people are going to push against AI created content because it doesn't represent thought leadership. It represents a conglomeration of ideas that have been previously shared. And so I think the pendulum's going to swing that way, where everyone goes, ooh, we're going to create everything with AI because it's easier. And then, oh, the public hates it. No one interacts with it. We're going to swing back the other way, probably into a more happy medium where it becomes more of like, okay, the human is what we're showing to the world, but AI is helping come up with that content.
Do you think that we're going to reach a point where artificial intelligence can create, where agents could actually create? Because right now we're at a space where it has large data sets. That's it. And all it can do is take those large data sets and then regurgitate something to you. So at best, all it can do is pirate somebody else's creative capacity, right? But it doesn't have that creative capacity right now. Do you see a world where that could be possible inside of AI?
You know, my limited mind doesn't see a world where it can come up with new concepts by, on its own. But I've got a friend who vehemently disagrees with me and says that, with enough creativity and with enough forced hallucination, it really can be creative. So we'll wait and see. But I think I'm in the camp of like, I think I'm going to be thinking more about how do I train an AI model with the cutting edge level of thought leadership that I want to put out into the world, and then maybe through an AI agent that can be shared. That can be a chat bot on the website. It can go into writing a newsletter, things like that. But as of right now, I don't feel like I'm there yet.
So if you were, let's talk about the business owner who is, let's say they've got between $5,000 and $20,000 a month that they're running in advertising, and they're creating content and they're doing all the things that you say. If there's one piece of it that they should focus on in terms of automation and trying to get AI to do the work for, be it creative or targeting or bid strategy, where would you have them focus their efforts on that?
I think I would do it in terms of written content. So the offers themselves, like ebooks and guides and that kind of thing, as well as the copy that describes it. I think that's a great thing to let AI at least come up with drafts for that a human can then go and edit and perfect. I wish it were really good at making recommendations on bidding and budgets and analysis. Hopefully in the future it gets there. Probably not there yet.
Yeah, got it. See, that's all still got to be done manually. And then do you think that what are you seeing right now in the space? And this may be very industry specific or company specific, but do ebooks, are those still something that people really want and they sign up for, and that those are really high quality leads? Or is there something else that you see kind of repeatedly across industries really tends to perform well as a lead magnet?
Amazing question. So for years we tried using lead magnets as a way of driving sales conversations. We offer you a juicy ebook or join this awesome webinar, and then sales goes and follows up with you trying to start a sales conversation. And increasingly over the last 4 or 5 years, we find that people go, thanks for the content, and then they will not respond to anyone. This is the public saying, just because I downloaded a piece of your content does not mean I'm ready to talk to someone. So ebooks, guides, checklists, all of those things are very effective as lead magnets, but it has to be part of a multi-stage nurturing process and funnel. And it's one part that gives people something that makes them know, like, and trust your brand even more, so that they are that much more likely down the road to accept a meet with our sales team, get a demo.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is you create something that you think your ideal prospect would be interested in consuming. But then you understand that you still are going to have to do the work and the follow-up process. And I teach people to do this through personality-driven emails, which allows them to just email, and talk about their life and really let them get to know you until they're ready to enter into a sales conversation, right? And so that's the way I've always taught it. But it sounds like that's exactly what you're saying, which don't expect that, hey, because you've been around long enough. There was a time when you could take a $7 tripwire offer, give them a couple of upsells behind it, and the next thing you know, within 30 days, you've converted them into a high ticket offer.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that works anymore. I haven't seen everybody I talk to says, no, that's not the way marketing works. You're basically just trying to get somebody to raise their hand and say, I'm your ideal person. And then everything else needs to happen on the back end.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah, that's the way you guys are doing it. Man,
Yep.
It's so good to know. I don't get to talk with guys at your level very often about this and what's really working and what isn't. And so it's great to have some validation that what I'm doing and that what I'm telling other people to do is at least close to accurate.
Oh, 100%. And it's taking the principles that you're teaching about how to create content organically and then using paid ad dollars to help amplify that same message, and just it's pouring fuel on an existingly hot fire, just making it bigger.
When you have so when you have someone who is relatively small, and let's say a 5 to we can go all the way up to maybe 50 people inside the organization, with very minimal ad budget and sort of reach, the data sets that you're dealing with are much smaller, right? Is there a way for them to be able to validate? So one of the things, like if I get 300 people to look at one post that I make and I get, and that's kind of the average I get, and then one of them gets 600, is that statistically relevant? Or in order to say, oh, I should be producing more content like this? Or do you see what I'm saying? You kind of get what I'm asking? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. One of the beautiful things that you can do with LinkedIn ads that you just can't do with any other ad platform is we do what I call micro-segmentation. It's taking an audience and breaking them down by some minute aspect. So oftentimes we'll say, oh, the same audience, but this is going to be enterprise-sized companies versus small to medium-sized businesses, or VPs versus C-level. You can break them out into separate campaigns. You could show them the same exact thing, and then based off of the difference between those, let's say your VPs have a 10% higher engagement rate. What you learn is, oh, VPs are more of our audience. It's kind of like running market research, but you're getting that market research data by actual actions that people are taking, and they don't know they're being measured. And I think you're able to learn more about your audience than you could any other way. So for your example, you could put 2 separate campaigns together targeting the same audience, put one post in one, another post in the other, and you could keep them totally separate, keep them in separate retargeting audiences, see how they respond differently to the next thing that you offer. There's all kinds of different measurement you can do.
I wonder if there's a way, can you export all of that data that you're getting fed by LinkedIn into the AI, like you said, fill the data sets and then have it help look for those sort of connections that you might have missed?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If you can give it a simple numerical data set, it will actually pop out over into Python to do the actual calculations and then bring it back to language. So it does understand numerical things pretty decently, just not the way I wanted it to. But if you give it that and say, here are the results from 2 different ads or 2 different campaigns, is this statistically significant? It can calculate that for you.
That's brilliant. Okay, cool. Man, that's awesome. AJ, thank you so much for giving your time to us and for talking about LinkedIn and everything you're doing inside of your company. It's fascinating to me. I hope it's fascinating to the audience. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing? I'm sure we're going to have some people who are going to be blowing up your email.
Yeah, come visit me on LinkedIn. Just search for AJ Wilcox. You can follow me there, or if you want to connect, just make sure you customize the connection request. Just say you heard me on Jason's show. Then I'll be happy to connect with you. But that's a great way. I also host the LinkedIn Ads Show podcast. So any of you who want to get really nerdy with LinkedIn ads on a weekly basis, come check me out over there.
Yeah, and I listened to a couple of episodes of that show before this interview. It is a great show. Absolutely fantastic show.
Thanks so much, Jason. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon. Well, okay, that's our show. Hey, if you liked what you saw today, if anything that you heard got the wheels turning in your head, please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell icon, and share the show with somebody so that they can learn as much as you did. That really helps out the show, and it makes me feel good. So thanks for doing that. And then if you're looking for a really simple way to dip your toe into the AI space, then I highly recommend that you check out Motion. It's an incredible productivity tool and project management tool with hundreds of thousands of users, and they've even now implemented AI agents that can do some of the work for you. And since all of your projects and your notes are all managed inside of Motion, that means the AI agent can be even more effective because it knows what's going on inside of your company. And the best part is you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the description. So what do you got to lose? It's free. Go get it. Try it out. I know you're going to love it. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.